Hello, my name's Jasper and welcome back to Buckle Up. This is a Citroen DS3 and today I'm going to try and find out if this car is actually quite a good used buy. Initially released in 2009, the DS3 was Citroen's attempt at breaking into the premium small hatchback market, bringing this car up against rivals such as the Mini hatchback and the Audi A1. The front end styling is very striking, with a large grille sitting front and centre and the blingy Citroen badge integrated into some chrome strips at the top of it. You've also got unique shaped headlamp clusters and LED running lights flanking the sides of the front bumper. Above the Citroen badge you also have the DS badge. Now in 2016, when DS was split into a separate company, this car became the DS3. But because this car is actually from 2011, I shall be referring to it as the Citroen DS3. The funky design elements continue around the side of the DS3, with what seems to be a floating roof sitting atop the striking bodywork. One of the best things about the DS3's design is this little piece of bodywork here, which is just unique. This car took quite a dull base, being the Citroen C3, and really made it something desirable. Other notable things at the side are the contrast black mirror caps and these diamond cut alloys, which add a little premium element to the car. You can also see the incredibly long doors that this three-door hatchback has, but the rest of the side doesn't actually have that much to talk about. At the rear of the car, the quirky styling continues, with the boot line slowly dropping away to a vertical bumper and a nice chrome-tipped exhaust. Now, it's probably worth mentioning that when new, the DS3 was insanely customizable from the factory, with something in the region of 300,000 different combinations of various different colours and elements and plastic bits available to choose from new. So that means that if you are looking for this as a used purchase, you should probably be able to find one that has a few different bits that you quite like on it. The rear tail lights on this model are unfortunately the pre-facelift ones, so these don't have a kind of infinity mirror effect in them, but I'd argue that this styling at the back is still pretty well rounded, and actually the car on the whole is very good looking. The boot is accessed via this little indentation at the bottom here, and when you open it you will be greeted with the largest boot out of this car and its two main rivals. The DS3 has 285 litres of space back here, whereas the Mini only has a paltry 160 and the Audi A1 has 270, so nipping at the heels. If you're after a practical, smart looking premium hatchback, the DS3 may well be the one to go for. It's got a big booty. While the boot's open, you will also notice that the two outer rear seats have Isofix with a top tether, and there's no false floor, and you've got a little bit of an elastic strap to slide things in, but there's no cargo net, though there are tethering hooks provided. So yes, there are a few practical touches back here. Clambering into the back of the DS3 is actually pretty easy. The front doors open really wide and then the seat folds forwards and slides forwards. It does afford you quite a lot of space to actually climb in here. Once you're back here and sitting down, you'll find that there's actually a pretty good amount of headroom, with recesses in the ceiling and knee room because there are recesses in the back of the front chairs. So I am actually quite comfortable back here. My legs are a little bit too bent, so I can tuck my feet under the chair in front of me, and that does make me a bit more comfortable. However, the seats could do with just being a tiny bit higher with respect to the floor of the car, but that's a very minor gripe. There aren't really many features to speak of back here. You've got a small cubby holder on each side, and then quite a handy and chunky grab handle, which is good for when your driver's hooning it around, but also makes climbing in and out very easy. You've got 3 headrests, all of which are height adjustable back here, so you could carry 5 people in this car, although I'd probably recommend only 4 if you're doing a longer journey, because you would find yourselves a little bit squished sideways for space and shoulder room in the back seats. In the cabin up front, you are met with quite an array of good quality materials and also some very funky elements of design. So you've got a nice gloss black plastic finish to the main elements of the dashboard, and then bits of squidge on the top, and you've got quite a statement steering wheel which is wrapped mainly in leather but also in plastic on the lower portion right in front of you, flanked by the DS badge. Your gauge cluster is 3 chrome flanked dials, and the DS3 was actually available with a really good range of features. So this model has actually got auto lights, auto wipers, cruise control, climate control and a media player, which for 2011 wasn't too bad a set of features, especially at the premium hatch end of the market. The cabin feels spacious, but you also have a sporty driving position. You do sit relatively low, and you're surrounded by dark plastics and a dark headliner, so you do feel quite cocooned and planted in the car. I've also got electric windows and power folding mirrors. The DS3 even came with a built-in air freshener, which you could change cartridges in and get your car smelling nice and fresh. The model I'm in today has the 1.6 litre normally aspirated Prince petrol engine, which was shared incidentally with the Mini of the same era, and this is mated to a 5-speed manual gearbox. Let's have a drive and see what it's like. So, the DS3, how does it drive? In short, pretty well, to be honest. The engine is quite a strong point, 120 metric horsepower PS at 6,000 RPM and produces 160 Newton meters of torque at 4,200 RPM. So those are relatively healthy numbers, and the engine itself is certainly pretty willing to rev. It's certainly quite a good point in the driving experience of this car. Now, you've certainly got a lot of toys in here. So as previously mentioned, auto lights, auto wipers. It really does feel quite a premium vehicle when you're driving it. Despite the firm suspension, you are relatively well isolated from imperfections in the road. However, the large alloys that are very stylish do mean that you do get some larger clatters coming through to the cabin. Now, the chassis itself feels pretty competent, and it's certainly small enough and stiff enough that you could have a decent amount of fun in this car. The engine certainly has a nice note as it revs, and it really does feel quite eager to pull you forwards, despite only being 120 PS. The engine pulls you from 0 to 60 in a shade under 9 seconds, so this car can be described as relatively nippy too. The steering wheel really does feel nice to hold, and you feel very planted on the road. As well as being quite cocooned in because of the cabin, that does make it feel quite eager. I'm not going to say sporty because it doesn't feel sporty, however, it does feel quite good to drive. Now, the chassis in this is not going to be anywhere near as good as the one in the Mini. However, I'd argue that you'd certainly have a lot more fun driving one of these than you would an Audi A1, because the Audi is just quite a numb hatchback. This feels like it's got a little bit of get up and go about it. Now, the unfortunate thing about the driving experience in this car, with it being a French car, is the clutch. The gearbox is surprisingly good. I'm not finding it too difficult to get into gear, and the throws are reasonable, although there is a bit of play once you're in gear, but that's just in the linkage mechanism. The gearbox itself seems fine. but the clutch. Now, it's the classic French car thing where you have this much clutch pedal travel and all of the clutch happens in that tiny portion at the top end. So it feels very unnecessary, the amount of travel you have in the pedal. Now, the engagement of the clutch when you get to it is fine, but it's nowhere near where you'd expect it to be jumping out of any other car into this, unless it's another French car with a dodgy clutch. And yeah, it certainly sounds pretty good too. I think the combination of the engine and the little slightly sporty exhaust is very good. I certainly wouldn't mind, to be honest, daily driving something like this, because it's got a nice little bit of oomph behind it, and also the engine note does actually make you kind of enjoy things. The cabin feels quite premium. The materials, you know, they're not the best you're going to come up against. They're not going to be as good as the cabin of an Audi, but certainly for the premium hatch end of the market from the time, this does feel really good. Now, something else to talk about while I'm in the cabin is practicality in here. And yes, the boot in this car is really good, best in the trio of cars that you might be cross-shopping here, but the in-car practicality is unfortunately lacking. There is a glove box, which is a decent size, but it's not very well damped and it kind of just drops open. And unfortunately, there aren't really any cup holders to speak of. Well, I say there aren't any cup holders to speak of. You'd be fine putting a bottle of water in your door card, or even in the little cubbies in the back, but there aren't actually anywhere to put like a cup, as in like the cup you'd get if you were to go and get a drive-through Starbucks, for example. Which is unfortunate, really, because that's something that you would kind of expect from a more premium hatchback from this era, that little extra touch of practicality. I love the interior design, styling and layout of all of the controls and features, and there's a really good range of stuff in here. However, it is missing a couple of little things. Now, you've got this armrest between the seats, which you can fold down and put some stuff in the top of, but if you do that, it blocks you from accessing the handbrake. So it's something that you're probably just going to end up leaving folded all the way up. And it's just little things like that that don't seem quite as well thought out as you might expect. DS is marketed as the premium brand to Citroen, and back then a DS car was meant to be the kind of sportier, more premium, fun, funky car to the Citroen equivalent. And you do get that, you certainly get that in the driving experience, but you don't necessarily get all of the premium practicality elements that you might expect of a car in that kind of category. The cabin is unfortunately a little bit clattery due to those alloys, but you don't actually feel the bumps too badly. So the suspension must be quite good, but you just hear the imperfections in the road. It's not the quietest driving experience, but it's certainly not the worst driving experience I've ever had. Citroen know how to make a good car. On the whole, this driving experience is actually really good. I enjoy it. Small, light, and a little bit of fun. What more can you ask for, really? So, DS3, on the whole, yeah, pretty good package. It's got premium elements, it's got funky styling, and it's got enough fun in the driving experience to make it quite an interesting daily car. I'd certainly be willing to put my money where my mouth is. If I was in the market for a second-hand car of this kind of age, I would certainly be looking at a DS3. Thank you so much for watching today's video. If you've enjoyed what you've seen, please remember to like the video and subscribe to the Buckle Up YouTube channel for more content like this. We do a range of car reviews as well as some challenges and keeping up with car news too. If you'd like to support the channel in a more direct way, we have 3 ways you can do that. You can buy some merchandise, which I am wearing, but it's really windy and cold, so you're not going to see any of that. And you can also support the channel directly here on YouTube as a member, or you can follow the link in the description by our social media links to find our Patreon and if you'd like to support us there, you could become a patron. Thank you so much for watching. My name's Jasper, you've been watching Buckle Up, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Coming up against quite formidable rivals such as the Mini hatchback.
What does quite formidable mean?
Ah!